Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. I am Ross Morasso with a first-time guest for me, but a returning guest on our program, Janis Reed, who resides in Western Grayson County, Virginia. She is a psychic and medium. You can contact her at goddessjanis@hotmail.com or look her up on Facebook at Janis Reed. Janis, welcome back to the show.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
I'm great. And for anybody who is just tuning in for the first time, tell us a little bit about what you do.
Well, I associate as a storyteller. I am a traditional Heyoka, which is a Lakota term. It's not transferable. I can't be an Eastern Indian Heyoka. I was notified by a series of lightning that went through my body and through my house for about 8 hours. A couple of weeks later, after the lights had all come on, a gentleman out in Western Oklahoma tottered up to me and just walked up out of nowhere and said, "I just came to tell you, you're not crazy. You're Heyoka." And the whole room full of Indians laughed because they all knew what that was. And then he gave me a turquoise to keep me calm, and he turned around and walked off. And I was left wondering what kind of derogatory name he had called the blonde-haired, blue-eyed white girl in the middle of Indian country. And why did all the other people in the room laugh when they heard that? But as he walked away, he looked up towards the heavens and he said, "Oh, Great Spirit, you sure can pick them. I don't know how she's going to do this. It's hard enough for me as a man." And he walked off. It took years to understand the term Heyoka. It literally means crazy person. But it means I've been touched by God. There's a lot of different traditions around the world where they have different people are literally touched by God. And in this case, I was. I was touched in the manner of a Lakota tribe member, in a very traditional manner. And I was identified as Heyoka from a Lakota medicine man. This is the only way I know of anyone could ever become Heyoka. We are not something, I wouldn't have picked this out. It's a crappy job, literally. But it gets the job done. So I work for Spirit. And in order to soften some of the things I see and talk about, I tell them in story form. So when people contact me and they say, "I need some help," I ask them to write down whatever their issue is so that they can, kind of put a pin in that and tuck that little information away. And then the person and I will meet up on a telephone call, and I'll just start telling them the story that I see around them. They can be on the other side of the world, but I see this story bubble up around them and I tell them the story. To my delight, when I started doing this, no one ever asked, "Well, how did you know that?" They just started responding to the stories as if it was just regular language. When I was all finished telling my stories and we talked about the story, I would ask the person, "Well, what was it you wrote down anyway? What was I answering?" And only then do I know what the question was. So I work backwards, which is my prerogative as Heyoka. I can come and go as I want. I did not want people to think I was giving them my opinion. I wanted them to know they were truly getting some help from Spirit, from what I call a Great Spirit. So by not knowing the questions before I give the answers, that seems to fit that need. So I'm a storyteller. I'm a crazy woman. I work as a medium, as a psychic, as a healer. I do a pretty good massage therapy. I do sound therapy. I work with past life hypnotherapy regressions. So far, I'm pretty well-rounded, full-service psychic. If you ask me for help, Great Spirit will deliver away. And I work for pretty cheap. I'm only $150 a pop. And the session lasts as long as it lasts. Currently, I won't do but one a day because sometimes they last longer than others and they require more explanations. But that's how I work. So where some psychics say, "Okay, you come to the psychic and you say, 'I have this problem with my husband And she says, okay, lie, lie, lie with your husband. I don't even know it's your husband or your cat or your 57 Studebaker.
Mm.
I have no clue what your questions are, but I'll answer you first. And so far, I've come up with names, addresses, phone numbers, dates, totally without me knowing what I was saying. So it's kind of fun. I get to watch the reading unfold just like everybody else does as a story in real time.
So let me ask you then, when you tell a story,
Mhm.
is it so let's say it was me, right? So I'm Ross. When you tell this story, am I in this story as Ross, or may I
Yes,
not even be in the story at all? Like, how do they unfold?
it depends on the story,
Mhm.
really. I gather the information. It takes me several days, in fact. I will dream for the person before I talk to them on the phone the night before. I'm a good dreamer. I will read cards. I'll go read tea leaves. I will read maple leaves and falling oak leaves. I will read the birds in the sky. I did a reading one time when a white bald head of an eagle went zipping by my kitchen door because Spirit wanted to have a say in that reading. Uh, it really, I read the moment of what it is. I brought you an example.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask you for an example of like what would be some sort of story. Go ahead.
This is a piece of paper.
Okay. Looks
Okay.
blank.
All right. It's blank. It's easy. It's copy paper, Walmart special. I would like for you, Ross, to think of a question that you'd like an answer to that you could be okay with it being publicly known. Could you do that for me?
Um, yes.
Just an easy one. Don't make it too hard. I don't want to embarrass myself.
Okay.
I've never done this on a video before, but while you're thinking of your question, I'm wadding up this paper. So this will be a newbie for both of us. But now I'm going to read the wrinkles in this paper and tell you your answer.
Okay.
Let's just see. I'm being really brave here. This is pretty kind of ballsy for me. That there's a sheep in this picture, and it's got a cloak around it. It's an animal in a wrap, as if it was a special horse. The wrap. Okay, so there's royalty here, and there's animal here too. There's fox. You're being clever with me, aren't you?
I'm trying to just keep my question in my mind.
Yeah, fox and Tasmanian devil. Okay, so you've got a strange combination of events going on here. Let me just take a second. Okay, I'm going to just admit my defeat here, if that's what it is. But I'm looking at, let me look at the other side. Let me just read the back of this page. You want to go on a trip for a ski trip?
Not exactly.
Not exactly, no. There's a journey here, but there has to do, the animals keep coming back as if it's very real, rustic, like you're going out into the woods, mountains, climbing. Got nothing to do with any of it, does it? I'm gonna screw up. I see mountains and a lot of outside terrain with wild animals, foxes, hyenas, birds. These are royal animals. This is like the spirits of all the wild animals coming to help you in a forest somewhere. As a
And
result,
yes.
as a result, I would suppose, and it's only a supposition because I'm trying to do a reading here live on your show,
Uh-huh.
that your question involved dealing with, tell me how to say it, the more uncivilized aspects of your being, more of your uh, wild side. It seems there's some connection. No, I'm going to just call this a blank. There's a trip involving other people. There's a trip involved. You
Oh,
probably just go into the store and getting a Coke, but it seems to be a trip involved.
no, I was just waiting to get all of your thoughts. We actually have a trip that we're debating on going out to Calgary, Canada, which is not exactly a metropolis out there to go shoot a movie and it's calling upon us, a group of people, to decide if we actually want to go do it, because in order to get it right, we kind of need to do it in the winter, and we
Yeah.
need to do it away from a lot of civilization, like out into the forest. So I was just kind of
Mhm.
curious if pursuing this endeavor would be a good idea.
Well, clearly wear a coat. All those animals had coats on. It did seem like a snow scene. That was kind of funny you'd say that. I'm very pleased with myself. I came back close to not having a total loss. The journey would be a good one. There would be a lot of wildness on your own. Um, yeah, you'd be out there making your own coffee and doing it in the woods like the bears do. It would be a beautiful scene. Yes, the mountains in Calgary. Yeah, it would be really pretty. Um, and it, let me just check my notes here because it looks like it's kind of smooth. There's a lot of smooth angling here,
I've been
as if it,
apprehensive about wanting to go because my self-deprecating humor for myself is I always say I'm an indoor guy. And
Mhm.
so to go spend several weeks out in the forest, I mean, I think it would be a really good project, but it also is not exactly my cup of tea, as they say.
Yeah, you won't get cups of tea. You'll have to make your own tea. It would be a real change in your world. It will open your eyes up to a whole nother ability of your own. You can do this and actually be quite comfortable out there because you'll be the one that brings the napkins and the paper towels, in the special silverware and your own real plate. Make it a glamping adventure. But the film, the pictures, the visuals that you will see out there are really beautiful. I mean, just let's see. I'm looking. I don't see any horrendous things happening. I don't see a huge snowstorm that's going to block you in or anything.
So think it's worth going then.
I would. Of course, I'm an adventurous person, but yeah, I believe you. You will hate it, and you'll get home and you'll say, "I did that. I sure did." And look what a great thing I did by doing it.
All right. Well, the rest of my crew wants to do it, so I've been sort of the
Yeah,
holdout. So that's
I encourage you. I encourage you. But um, when I first started going camping out by myself, I I'm like you. I just soon sit inside and watch the world through the window. But I was determined, so I packed a little red fold up Parsons table, and I had some little melamine dishes, and I had some little stemware and silverware, and I was one of the first glampers sitting out on the beach with all my little furniture and dishes and things because I needed a little bit of home. I need a little civilization. So do that. Bring your little Parsons table and a napkin and a tablecloth, maybe a little candelabra.
so bring it with me.
Bring it with you. Pack it in, pack it out. But you'll be surprised at how little you'll need. You will be surprised at how beautiful you wake up every morning when that fresh air hits your lungs.
Mm.
I like it already. I want you to go so I can be a voyeur over your shoulder.
Let me ask you, when you were first declared Heyoka, was that the first time you knew you had a gift, or like when did all this start for you?
Before birth.
Oh,
I I believe that I'm probably pretty normal here, but I'm really guessing at it. I think that in order to work with spirit like I do, whether you do it from the Pope or the Taliban even, if you work really with spirit, you get several lifetimes to get you ready for it.
mm.
A regular brain, I think, would have exploded a long time ago, and I would be in a straitjacket. But I was born this way, so to say. I came conscious in my crib. Imagine a regular baby bed crib, the full size baby bed crib.
Hmm.
My recollection is of trying to reach my toes to the bars on one side and my fingers to the bars on the other side, going short ways across the mattress, and I couldn't reach. That's how young I was when my memories go back. I played with a little light ball in my crib. Little ball of light still shows up periodically. That being that little ball of light get into more issues. I've been led all of my life. I was the one my mom would tell to be quiet, and then she'd call me secretly to see if I saw the same thing she did. I
Oh,
was the family nut that mom would call up and say, "What do you think?" Or somebody's going to die, and I'd be the one with the dream first. Or I was kind of built in as an extremely sensitive person. I can say that and be straight. I was very sensitive to other emotions, other people, situations, my surroundings, so that when the lightning hit me in Oklahoma, it almost felt like normal there when it started. It just seemed like one more thing in my life to have this happen. But after the people in my house cleared out, and it was so many hours with this stuff zipping in the kitchen door, through the top of my head, and then fanning out through my toes, and shooting in through one ear, and then bubbling up, out of my nose and out of my belly button. It was something like the strangest movie you ever saw in your life, only it was my world.
mm.
And it was so bizarre, I took it in stride. Other people probably would have blown it, but I just, my world was so, I had been an abused wife, not once, but I gave it up, married him again, and had been abused twice. I
Mm.
have always been the one that people think lesser of because I don't think like they do. So I was a setup. Then when the lightning came, it just sort of put the cherry on the top.
How old were you when that happened in Oklahoma?
In my 30s, it was in the late 80s, 30 years ago.
Okay, so you sort of knew that you had a gift pretty much straight from birth. When did some of the people around you start to realize that you had something else?
When I looked up from my crib and told my grandmother, "Hi there," and I was 9 days old,
So really everything started that early.
that early, 9 days. My mother, I was the second child. My mom called her mom and said, "This kid's talking. Get over here." My grandmother said, "No, darling, she's just ba ba ba, and she's being a baby. Remember how babies talk?" So she
Hmm.
came over to hear the baby babble, and she walked in and looked down at me, and I said, "Hi there," and she had to sit down real hard. Mom says I've never shut up.
And do you think that they had treated you as though we were psychic ever since you were a little girl?
My mother was very suspicious.
Mm.
I was about 5 years old when I disappeared. We were in Ohio then. We moved a lot. I disappeared behind the cornfield out behind the barn. I was just playing. There were some great people out there. They weren't much taller than me. We played all day. They didn't have to wear clothes like I did, but they like their whole body was like they didn't have to wear clothes, man. They were had clothes on. We played. We had the best time until one of them said, "Well, they're coming for you. You better go home now. It's getting dark." And I turned around, and this big fireman at that point, I looked around, the people were all gone. Suddenly they were gone. Maybe my imagination, I was, 3 or 4 years old. But the
Okay.
firefighter busted through the cornfield. He ripped me out of the ground, held me up over his head, and said, "I've got her, I've got her." Well, it turned out I had been out in that cornfield for hours and hours and hours and hours in the middle of Ohio. No one knew where I was. I was way too little to be by myself. I didn't think I was by myself. I was playing with my new friends. So when I told my mother and the firemen I wasn't by myself, I wasn't by myself. I was playing with my little friends. Well, then they took down the cornfield looking for the gypsies and the people trying to steal children. It was a memorable occasion. But I would often wander off and visit with these people that would show up. Eventually, Mama had to actually put me on a leash because I'd wander off visiting with people she didn't see.
Mm. And
And
then
then I'd come
when
back.
did she start to come around though for you? Like when did she start to, her some of her suspicions start to subside?
Do you remember the psychic named John Edwards?
Yeah.
Do you remember when he put his first book out? Just a few, what, 20 years ago, something like that.
Yeah.
I get a phone call from, by this time, my mother is in Tennessee and I'm in Virginia, but we're within a couple of hours of each other. So I get this phone call one day, and my mother is in her mother's voice. the one that said, I know you did it.
Mm.
And she told me to get myself there now. She didn't ask me. She just told me to get my butt to her right now. I was 40 something years old, for goodness sakes.
Mm.
I wasn't about to go jump to my mother's snap of her finger. I was being myself. So it took me 3 or 4 hours to get to the house and find out what was up with mom. Walk in the door and she says, get over here. She demands I go into the living room and she shakes this book at me. And
Okay.
the book is John Edwards' book.
Mm.
And she says, is this what you do? She was like, I was about to be, shot or sent to my room again or something. I said, yes, ma'am. I called her ma'am. She was in that voice. Yes, ma'am. That's what I do. That's a lot what I do. I do that and I do some other things. And she just glared at me and she said, well, then you don't charge enough. And that was what I got yelled at, was because I didn't charge enough. Okay, at the time I was charging $20. She was right.
Ah.
But that was how my mother came to grips after 40 something years of rearing me and being my mom. She finally understood what I was and what I do. She,
I was going to ask you then, because in terms of what you do in the beginning of the show, and by the way, for everyone talking to us here or listening to us, I'm talking with Janis Reed, who is I'll say psychic storyteller, but more full service and rounded in that way. And what I wanted to ask you, when it comes to being a medium, and talking with entities from the non-physical realm, how does that play out? Are they like talking complete sentences? Do they show you imagery? What sort of connection do you have with them?
it's sort of interesting. They answer straight up.
Okay.
I developed a relationship early on where I just talk to them. I go around. It looks like I'm talking to myself. People move away from me in the aisle, and I'm talking to spirit. Um, but I get a lot of answers straight away. I also get images, pictures, emotions. Um, I went in to do massage one time on a brand new client, and I had to leave the room 3 times and throw up before I could even begin with her. She had also been abused,
Hmm.
and my body responded to her abuse without even knowing what she looked like. So we had to work on that, and we actually did. As a result, because it was such a surprise for both of us that I would nail her issue so quickly. I mean, it was difficult to ask her this question because this is a very intimate question for anyone.
Of
But
course.
to ask her in the privacy of the massage room if she had been being abused, and she just cried for 20 minutes. No one had ever known. How did I know? After about 4 years, she came in. She became a regular client, and she was smiling ear to ear. She and I had worked together because she wanted to keep her marriage. She wanted her husband to love her. She wanted her sons to respect her.
Mm.
And after 3 or 4 years, she came waltzing into the business and said, guess what? My son wished me good morning this morning, and my husband made me coffee. They had changed the way they addressed her because how she had learned to address them. Working with me, she learned how to stand up for herself without being a nasty person about it. She learned how to love them in a way that they began to respond in kind. Her marriage was saved. Her children went through college. They love her, call her mom. Her whole world swapped. When that happened, I realized my stories were really onto something. We were into another realm besides massage therapy. And I went ahead and claimed it. I helped this woman change her life for a much better life.
So
With the
even
same,
during your massage therapies, and we only have a few minutes left, but
yeah.
during when you do massage therapies, like you could tell your stories even while that's going on. Do you find because of the physical connection now with doing massage, that's alternative than if somebody was over the phone or anything, or no?
Oh, it helped me. It helped me. Spirit's given me so many different lessons of how to do things so that I'll be prepared for whatever. But I needed to doing massage. I did that. Gosh, I started massage in 74. I'm an old woman. To learn how to become comfortable exchanging this kind of information could only have been done in person. I don't think I would be able to be as comfortable well, maybe because I'm that kind of crazy woman, but it became easier for me to understand my value by looking into the face of the person I was working with.
Mm.
People will tell you anything, but they cannot hide their emotions. So when I'm looking at you, you can't lie to me that you feel good or feel bad or you got hit or you caught the ball. I'm going to pick up on your joy or elation or sadness.
You could probably feel it in our like muscles and everything too, right? If you're doing the massage part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, people would walk in and before they'd get on the table, I'd ask them, had they been to the golf again? You been golfing again now? Did you? Yeah, I've been golfing. And because my muscles would feel like their muscles even before they walked into my massage room. The empathy or the coexistence almost. When I read for someone, I kind of crawl into their skin, into their world, insofar as they will allow me to see what's going on. It's one of the reasons that I won't work with somebody usually, like I did you. I get skittish because people will shift and change their mind. I'll get close to an answer and suddenly their question was different. And so really what they're trying to do is make me prove myself.
Oh.
I don't prove myself. I mean, I did a paper reading for you today. I've never done that before and I got that close. So
yeah. No, I thought it's a really neat thing to do. I mean, we get to talk again. I'd like for you to tell me more about what's going on. I think what you do is extraordinarily fascinating, Janis. We only have a minute or so left. So tell everybody where they can find you if they want to connect with you.
Oh, they can find me in their dreams. I'm apparently easy to find. You can find me on Facebook, Janis Reed at Facebook. You can email me. Goodness, email me at goddessjanis@hotmail.com. I tried to find an email name with Janis. They were all taken up until my mother said, my mom, protagonist that she was, said, well, try Goddess. You know, you're a goddess anyway, so try Goddess Janis. And the darn name took, and so that's my email name. It's a GODDESSJANIS at hotmail.com. Because where else would you find a goddess but at Hotmail?
All right, Goddess Janis at hotmail.com. You can also, if you Google looking for her at Psychic Medium Southwest VA, you can find a website, Janis Reed on Facebook. And Janis, it was a real pleasure to talk to you today. I hope that I have another opportunity in the future to chat with you even more. I have a lot more questions. And thank you to everybody else who tuned in today. I am Ross Morasso. Until next time.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, I mean, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.